So what happens next? Are more airstrikes really the only way forward? The London-based Middle East expert Nabila Ramdani doesn't think so. She told me dialogue, not military might, could be the key to Libya's problems.
I think it's high time that, the two sides sit down around the negotiating tables, because patently there have been killings on both sides, and both sides are determined to push forward their own agenda. Of course, the Gaddafi forces, the Gaddafi regime is determined to put down the rebellion. And we have seen how Gaddafi is not, such a reliable person. He's so far announced 2 ceasefires, on which he hasn't delivered. So he's not exactly a trustworthy person when it comes to sticking to his words.
Is that the sort of person you want to sit down and talk to then?
I think there's a greater chance of achieving something if you bring an end to violence to begin with. I think that was the primary aim of the UN resolution, which was to protect civilians. But we've seen how the UN-led coalition and now the NATO-led coalition has gone beyond its primary goal, and it's now clearly backing up the rebels, and it's clearly aiming for political change.
Regime change.
Absolutely, and I think that's disingenuous, and I don't think it's the job of the West to do that in Libya, and that's why it's very important now that people start to talk.
But if you negotiate, if you start talking, what do you talk about? What's the end game?
Well, the end game, as far as the UN, the resolution was concerned, was to make sure that less people got killed in that conflict. The immediate aim should be an end of violence, the end of deaths, and then we can move forward and discuss how, for example, we can hold the Gaddafi regime accountable, how we can bring him and members of his family in front of international courts of law, for example. But that shouldn't be the primary aim now. Now the aim should be to restore some peace and stability within the country, and most importantly, to end the number of killings.
I'm still not clear, though, that, if you do have talks, where would that leave Libya? Because at the moment, the country is very much in limbo. We're not quite sure who's in charge. Now, if you have talks, you want to make sure you're going to know who's in charge.
Very much so, and that's something that the Libyans themselves will have to decide. And that includes having discussions with the Gaddafi regime, which is still there, whether we like it or not. And that might include, as the Gaddafi regime suggested so far, to make some room for opposition figures within a transitional government. Benghazi has always been traditionally a bastion of opposition. It's not recent. It has been so for a long time, and the brutality of the Gaddafi regime against the East has always been horrific as well. And it would be a disaster if the country ended up being split up along tribal lines. And that's something I think we have to make sure to avoid, because otherwise it would be such a sinister reminder of the Western legacy in countries like Iraq or Afghanistan, for example.
The assessment there of Nabila Ramdani.